Okay, we're going to fix this light map problem. Well, you can see here that I've already fixed it. It does need some adjustment, but it is using the real-time lighting or pre-computed GI. If I open up the lighting dialog box, you can see that I have pre-computed, and if I change the settings, it updates. If I go to the light, change the light direction or intensity, that updates. So that actually is working. So the errors that were coming up, or the most important one, is this one here. Failed executing external process of light transport job. These other cautions will take care of as well. So for sure, the terrain toolkit, we know we can just collapse that. We don't need that. These other ones didn't actually stop the bake, but they do impact. For instance, this we have to fix some shaders on the terrain as well, and the requested resolution was clamped at add to maximum size 512 by 512 on mesh. We need to go in and fix that too, and I'll deal with that now. So first thing we had to do was well, to get it to actually bake, I had to go in and first of all, this may not have had an impact, but I did it anyway, which we talked about. I went to my preferences, and I did increase my GI. Saw online that some people were increasing this. I increased it to 50 gigabytes. I put it on a pretty fast hard drive. I didn't want it on my C drive. I put it on a secondary fast hard drive, and I also changed the location and bumped it up. It still wouldn't actually bake, but later on when I start increasing my resolution, this will become important. So that's the first step. You can crank it up just a little bit, but that may not be the main issue. Main issue I found was resolution. I didn't make any other changes to the scene. Only thing I needed to do, this real-time resolution was set at by default 2. I first set this down at went online and found out people were using much lower resolutions. I put this down to 0.01. First of all, it's going to bake much faster, and second of all, it actually bakes. So even if it doesn't bake, you don't have to wait for 45 minutes for it to crash. And then down here at the bottom, under General GI, the default parameters, I put at default very low resolution, and that bake took really, it was really quick. I'm just gonna undo it, clear it, and click it again, and you can see that it's got 2 jobs. It's gone. It's finished. Oh, this is just the error from me clearing the cache, and there it is. That's a pre-computed GI. I think it might have been that simple. If it's still not working, well, we're going to continue. So that I got it working so far on mine. So I'm going to talk about how to get rid of some of those cautions that were here earlier, which I'm surprised they disappeared by themselves. But let's address those now. And I'm going to actually check this to make sure that the baked GI actually will do the same thing. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to put this resolution way down. You know what? No reason to do that, because before I do that, I need to fix some problems that this is going to have. So if we look at our road network or our terrain, which one are we going to handle first? I'm just going to close this down. We don't need a terrain toolkit anymore. So we can go here. We can remove component terrain toolkit. Okay, that's fine. Let's look at the shaders. Yeah, we're here. So we're going to look at the tree shaders. Now, first of all, we have a bush that we're not even using. Where are my trees? Bush fort, we're not even using, so we're going to just basically delete that. Edit trees, remove trees. Now, these other ones we definitely are using, okay? best way to get to this tree, I found, I'll just go here, Scott Pine. Now what I'm going to do is, as I change this, I can't really see this update in my viewport, so I'm going to actually just plug this in my scene so I can see it update. Now this is kind of a secondary thing. I already have the shaders working, I mean the bake working. I just want to optimize things a little bit. Let me put it someplace. Where's the car at? Let me just put it next to the car just so I can keep things nice and neat. And then we're going to go in and fix the resolution and make it look much better. But let's just first, so this is Scott's Pine, show you a good way of going here and making these trees look much better. So I have that tree. I know that's the one that needs to be updated. So on the Scott's Pine, if we go to the shader, you can see here, and actually at this point, you know, I don't really want any real-time lighting. Although the resolution is so low, it probably wouldn't happen. Won't matter. I can go here and change. Let me see. Nature of soft bark. Can't remember which one it was. Yeah. I can go in here and start changing the ambient occlusion on this particular tree. And you can see right away, hopefully you can see that, it's starting to look a little bit better. I'm going to rotate this so I can get it better. And I'm also going to take my direct light and I'm going to rotate my direct light just so I can get a better idea of a better angle on this tree, so I can just see how it looks with a more, yeah, okay, that's actually better lighting here. So I have this tree. If I play with the ambient occlusion and the direct occlusion, alpha cutoff is for the leaves, and the base light, give it a little bit more base light just to lighten it just a little bit. And I can go to the dark and the bark and do the same thing. Play with the ambient occlusion on the bark, and you can see already that that looks much better, what you would expect. And then I think actually I don't really need to do anything because it's already applied here. But if I go back to my tree, to my terrain, and if I just say refresh all my trees of that particular type, and now we're going to look much better. Okay, so here we go. You can see that those trees look more realistic now. Okay, not so dark. And we just need to do that for, you need to check the shaders of the other ones. If they're not using the correct shaders, then they're just not going to work. They need to be using the natural shaders. Some of these trees you get may not be correct. Let's see here. Edit tree, sycamore. Let's do the same thing for this. Oh, we put that one. We can get rid of that other one, because you can't really edit them at the same time if they're on the terrain. So you need to put one in the scene so you can edit it. We're going to get rid of, oops, I painted. I didn't want to do that. Undo, place mask trees. I'm going to just get this, and I'm just going to get rid of that sycamore. Let me select away. Going to get rid of this Scots pine. Now I need to go back and get the sycamore. Which one was it? So it's just kind of an added thing. If you already know how to do this, you can skip ahead. But I'm going to go here and at least do one more. Let me just check to make sure that these are using correct shaders at least. Sycamore. Okay, let's put it here. That actually looks pretty good. Natural. Yeah, the sycamore doesn't look so bad, but I can do the same thing here. Adjust it if I need it. I'm surprised. That doesn't look so bad at all. I thought there were other ones. Are we using the sycamore? Oh, I don't think you're using sycamore. I don't see it, so it's a waste. It's in the list, but you're not using it. So let's delete it. Or maybe you're using it by where the house is at or something. But it looks like that seems to be lighting pretty good. We also need to fix the shadow distance. We know that. So I'm going to just delete that sycamore. Go back to my... I don't know these trees by heart. That's why I'm just going back to the terrain. Just make sure that I edit each one. Scotch pine. There it is. Now we're going to go to that shader. Natural tree soft occlusion. It's using the right shader. It just needs to be adjusted. Bring the base light up a little bit. Because otherwise it just become too dark. I mean, there might be another way to do this, but this is the only way that I found that seems to be working. Okay. That's good. And yeah, so that's it. That's Scotch pine. Now we can just delete from the scene. We don't need it. Let's go back to our terrain and refresh. Now if we don't want to paint on the terrain by accident, and you can see my trees look better. Now of course we have the shadow distance to deal with. You know where that's at. Player. Oh, sorry. Now we seem to still have some problems. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to actually double check. If it's not the shadow distance, then it's the terrain. Billboard start way off. There we go. So the next thing is so now I got my trees looking better. The next thing is to fix some of the resolution of the actual maps themselves. So let me make sure I got rid of all my unnecessary terrain, tree brush, these, yeah, we're going to fix this resolution problems here. So let's go back. Okay, so now when you're actually baking, now we're back to actual light baking issues. If we go to the lighting, first of all, you need to make sure that your road network has UV maps built into it, which I've already turned on. I hate to open it up because it takes so long, but yeah, I guess I'll have to open it up. Back to edit mode. No, actually, look at calculate light map UVs. This may or may not be necessary. I'm going to leave it off actually because it seems like they are getting light map UVs. Some reading says turn it on, some says don't. Anyway, it doesn't matter because Unity is going to rebuild those. I turned that on initially. I thought I was doing the right thing, but then I had problems later on. So for now, I'm just gonna keep it off, see if I can work without it, and I'll show you how Unity actually rebuilds these anyway. So I'm just going to make sure. Yeah, I'm going to turn off. I'm going to take a chance. So let's build that terrain. Sorry. So we have to wait for this to rebuild. Plus some of these side objects, well, we'll see what happens. So, okay, now. And you can see it's actually rebuilding the pre-computed pretty fast. So things are working pretty nice. But what I wanted to show you is, if you look at, well, you know what, it's kind of hard to show this without baking the baked GI, because the pre-computed GI doesn't actually use maps. But if I take a look at my terrain, go to my objects, over here I have some charting issues, and I can actually look at, once I bake the maps, how much space is taking on my baked light map. Now my baked light map size is going to be set here, Atlas size 1024 by 1024, once I turn it on. If you get errors like this, once again, I'm back to my terrain, I have my object selected, and I can just go here and select only the terrain if I want to. Object size in light maps has reached max atlas size. That is what gives you the cautions here in the list. And I've noted that sometimes it just makes things really slow. So you have to go in here and start adjusting these so you don't get this message. You can also get a visual representation of that if I turn on UV charts. No, clusterings. I gotta find out where it's at. Well, I get kind of, you can see here a checker pattern on, yeah, it actually is there, but it was such a, yeah, you'll see what I mean. UV charts, find one that looks good. Let clusterings, directionality. I think I'm just gonna go to this for now, just so we can see it. It's going to change once we start baking it, but this gives you a representation of the resolutions. And I can tell you that if I bake this now, most of my maps, my resolution is going to be taken by things that aren't necessarily important. For instance, this here, you know what? I think I'm just going to I'm going to actually do a bake. So you can see what the maps look like and see why they're wrong out of the box. Because I have some things here like these imported meshes that take up most of my space in my baked maps, and that's not what we want. So I am going to bake this. If it takes more than a couple minutes, turn this off, which I know it will. I'm going to just I'm going to put this at 0.1. It's actually doing the bake pretty fast. Look at that. There you go. That's very much nicer. So here are my maps that it actually built, right? And you can see now I can actually see what's taking up resolution and what's not. Okay. So my road has a pretty good resolution. My terrain hardly any. My side objects have I'm sorry, I'm going to move this over to the side. So I have one directional light map, 512 by 512. We need to go in here and tell it what's static and what's not static. Some things aren't even being built into the light map, so we need to go in here and fix that. So I'm going to do that in a minute. Well, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to actually go here to my objects. I'm going to go out of my renderers and figure out what needs to be baked and what doesn't need to be baked. So static, jerry can, we don't need. These are particles, we don't need. Stamp light beam, that's particles. Checkpoints, we don't want our checkpoints to be baked, so these should not be static, and they're not. Colliders, we don't need particles. We don't want any of the car to be baked, that's not. Deer blind. Yeah, okay, the deer blind is a static object. Should be baked. Yes, change children. And you can see here the scale and light map is going to be huge. Actually, it's building it now. I probably should turn that off, but let's see. Now it's starting to increase the number of jobs that it's baking because I just told it to include that. So for now, I'm going to turn off this real time. I mean this auto. I just want to do this all at once at the end. So scale and light, I know that that's going to be huge. That's going to take up most of the scale and light map. But I will bake one out and show you what the defaults look like so you can understand the motorway. That's going to be real huge. I'll get errors on that or cautions. Concrete barriers. Yeah, that's the side object. Those are also really big. But I'm going to just, it's city buildings. All these are, this default set to 1. These are all wrong. These wood railings default, yeah, these need to be light mapped. So let's select these. Those are set to 1. Those are going to be really big. Light default. I think this is the I think this is the, yeah, that's the well. That needs to be light map. That's one of the reasons my light map was doing really quick too. Wood railing, I think it said that already. Because which wall is this? I think this is a, which wall? F. Oh, that's this. Oh, these are the barriers, and those are not going to be light map because those are moving back and forth. Okay. So I think that's everything that needs to be baked, and you can do it really quick from this dialog. And I can also check any lights I need to, which I don't. These are not going to, these are going to be real time. Those are all going to be real time. And the terrain, obviously, it's going to be light matte static, and then that's the resolution of the terrain. So now, I'm going to go to my go to my, baking here, and I'm going to actually turn on, just going to hit build. Seven jobs, 5 jobs. So it's still going much faster than it did when we had the very high resolution. Now, obviously, once you get everything you know you like, you can start bumping that resolution up. But whew, the default resolution, I think, were mistakes. So 1 job left. 5. I'm going to just pause this. Okay, that took about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Now we should have some light maps. What? I guess I do, but things are not showing up correctly. Light maps. Huh. I guess these are the light maps. I'm gonna try this at a bigger size because that's extremely small. We can't see anything. Okay, I'm back. I set my resolution to 5 and and I baked it, and you can see, and it took like a minute. 2 minutes maximum, maybe less. I think it was building on information that was already there, just increasing the resolution. And now we can actually examine our light maps. And you can see we have 2 directional light maps, 2 by 1024 by 1024. That makes more sense because we had our atlas size at 1024 by 1024. The resolution we were at was so low earlier that we weren't even making our atlas size, which was really kind of stupid. So now I can show you what I wanted to show you. So now that we look here, we can see exactly what part of our what's taking up most of the room. And if you can see here, the motorway, if I do this from the easy roads, it keeps it the shape of the easy roads, which is not really efficient to lay out in the UV space, that might actually work better. We'll see. So anyway, we know that the terrain can take up a little bit more. So now we're finally getting these errors about how much size it's taken up. We know the terrain needs to take up a little bit more size. We can also here look at the resolution now that I have created some baked lights here, and it show light map resolutions. Let me see what's a good one to do here. UV charts. I think we just do baked. So now we can actually see the resolution of our baked area. Not so bad terrain wise, but you'll see if I look for, let me start with one of these. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm just going to start with the terrain. So if you can see now, if I start changing this, oh, sorry, that's not the terrain, that's the road. I was wondering what was happening. I don't have the terrain selected. So you can see, I look at the road, as I start changing this, I'm starting to get different resolution for our road. And that's going to show you what it looks like here in the viewport. And it's very helpful to let you know when you have reached the maximum size, it gives you this error, and when you are way below. So that's going to be that's going to be too low, and now this is going to be too high. So we're going here and just try to adjust it till we are almost to the point where we think that that's fine. Okay, so we're going to bring this up to maybe 0.85, maybe 0.8, 0.7. I'm going to go now get the terrain, and now I can maybe bring the terrain up if I need it. Give us some more resolution on the terrain, and you'll see that when I bake this, terrain is going to take more of this space. So I'm not going to go too high for the terrain. But we do need to go here, get our HUD ladder. We can bring that way down. That's something that you hardly ever see, and we can take that pretty far, pretty much down to, I don't know, something like 0.5. All the things that are off in the background, like why does that deer HUD, deer blind, need to take up almost the same amount of space as, well, quarter of the space of the terrain? That's way too little, too much. I'm going to bring this down to 0.5. So I'm just going to go in here and look at what I can increase, what's important. Curve these definitely, I don't even see those here. Those were causing me problems anyway later on. So, but I know that I don't need those to be at such a big scale. So let's see what the motorway is at. Motorway is at 0.75. These can go down to maybe 0.5. Zone curve. That's such a small thing. Kind of guessing on some of these, but yeah, one building here, and you can see how tight that resolution is on that building. It's off the side of the road. Why do we need to use resolution on that? We really don't, right? That's really tight. So let's bring that down to 0.5, 0.1. Yeah, let's go down to 0.5. That's still too tight. 0.5, maybe 0.7, something like that. And then we have all these wood railings. We hardly see those. They don't need to take up so much space. It's off to the side here. And then we have this well. And if we had a character who was walking around up close to that, then we could use resolution. But off to the side of the road, pff. And I think I might even take some resolution back from my terrain. Oops. Because remember, this was pretty low initially. It's still, since it's so big, it's still going to take up quite a large area here. But I don't need to get too crazy about it. Oh, this stupid thing happened. Hold on. Sometimes it gets stuck. You have to unstick it. Okay, so the terrain, if I have it selected, maybe we can give a little bit more resolution to the road, but I'm not sure if we need it. So I'm gonna just try to do a bake here and see what this looks like with the new resolutions. I'll show you what the new map is gonna look like, and I'll be right back. Oops, I make a mistake here. I forget to increase my bake resolution up to 20, 25, so I'm gonna do that in the next step, so you can do it now. Now I put the baked resolution up at 20 because it looks like, yeah, that's what I was expecting. So what happened is, as you are increasing the resolution of your objects, you can start increasing, well, as you're adjusting the resolution of your objects. It depends on your actual baked resolution. So if you have too much, and it happened initially, and I just forgot to reset it. So you can see here, I still have space in my map, but you can see now that my and I'm not getting any errors about things being out of the proportion. And now you can start to see that my terrain's taking up most of the space, is what you would expect because it's the biggest object. And little by little, everything else starting to filter in. You have intensity map and directional map. So let's see how that looks in the viewport. This is baked in. Now we had some problems with the shadows on the trees. And some problems with the side railings, how dark they are. So I think at this point, let's double check to make sure we are using only the baked lighting, which we have pre-computer turned off. It's baked. So yeah, so now we can, and it actually took, on my machine, it rendered pretty fast. So I'm just gonna put this up to 35. Or maybe 30, because I want this to be fast. So 25, okay? I'm really surprised that this baked resolution is getting so high now, but I shouldn't be, because that's what I had it done initially. So now, let's see if we can start resolving. First of all, I know we need to fix the shadows on the directional light. If I go back here to shade it, the trees. Now this difference in shadows from the terrain to the road, I think that has to do with the shader that's on the actual road. I initially thought it was part of the light baking problems, but I found out I think it was a shader. But let's go to this light, and since we can turn on the real time for this, just to get an idea. Let's see, can I adjust this intensity now? I'm going to take the shadow strength down. Yeah, let's take the shadow strength down to get better shadows on the terrain. There we go. So we got a shadow strength of like 656, something like that. Looks more realistic. That's good. And so we get our real-time shadows here. It's going to bake those shadows in as well. And now it's just about trying to find the right balance. That's not so bad, actually. Oh, we can fix these shaders on these. Actually, ooh, almost got past them. We can fix the shaders on those. That's actually not bad. I'm really surprised that it... Oh, let's take a look at some of the other things, how they baked. You know, that seems to be okay. I mean, we don't have any major problems with those. I did remember that the deer blind was a little bit dark at one point as well. Where's it at? Well, I don't know where it's at. Here it is. Actually, it looks better. So, to tell you the truth, that's pretty good. That's not bad at all. Let's play it. Okay. So we have a real-time light. We have our shadows. One last thing. Let's fix these shaders on these. Yeah. Everything seems to look fine. Now, if we turn off our light, you can see that's actually the baked lighting that we have. It's all baked in. Pre-computed real time is turned off. So if we were to reload this scene, it would load with our maps here. This is our baked light maps. And I am getting better results by just letting Unity unwrap instead of telling the road system, easy road system, to bake UVs. Now, last thing I said we were going to do, look at these barriers and fix their shaders. They're a bit too dark, and it's using legacy shader. You can usually use the newer shaders. These are the specular. The standard. Tiny bit of reflection. Let's just select that one so we can see this without I was correct to assume that there was some problems with the side objects. If you look closely here, and I've already fixed them, so I'm just going to go back to some screenshots. When I select the concrete barrier here, go to the lighting dialogues, and go to the parameters of this, you can see under the baked light mapping here, it tells me we have UV tiling set to infinity, and we don't actually see that here in the viewport. So then I figured maybe if I click on preserve UVs, that would do something. So I clicked on preserve UVs. They still don't show up in the viewport. I went to bake it, and I got this message here. It has 0 surface area or 0. Well, it's non-zero area is required for light mapping. So it's not working. So either it has like infinity on their tiling of the light baking maps, that's why they're not showing up here, or just telling me they don't have any UVs. That's why they're not showing up here in the viewport. So I spoke too soon. I needed to go back into the parent object of, go back into the, which I don't feel like doing now, back into edit mode because it takes a while to rebuild. Once you go back to edit mode, you need to go back here and check calculate UV. So once you click this, go back to edit mode here, which I don't want to click, but once you click that, it will bring up this dialog box, which I'm sure you're aware of if you've been doing this enough times. Click on calculate light map UVs. Then build the terrain. Once you build the terrain, look at this. Now you can see that there's UVs. Also, I applied collision meshes to the side objects as well, which you do inside Easy Road. But now if I go here to and select one of these security barriers, now you can actually see. Well, it hasn't built those yet, so that doesn't matter. But you can see that I actually have UVs, which you can see as I adjust them. I get information, get feedback. So I'm just going to adjust these to where they make sense, where they're not too big or too small. It looks like I can bring them up pretty big. I'm surprised. I'm just going to be 0.5 for these. And that's the other one, 0.5. Now I'm going to go back here and do a baked resolution at something reasonable, not too small. And I'm going to build this, and I hope this will actually work. This hopefully now they're going to show up in my light maps. And same for the stone curves here. Now they actually have. I'm not concerning myself about these too much, but you can see they do have UVs on them, but they're so small. I'm not concerned too much about those. Might as well tweak them since I'm here. I'm gonna go ahead and tweak those. Bring up the resolution on these until it gives me a error. Looks like I can bring these up pretty far. I'm just gonna go 0.8 on those. And if it doesn't work this time, then we just have a problem with later on I started getting some artifacts in the top of this side object, and if I get those again, it's just a problem with Easy Roads. It is still a beta, so it's possible. So we're just gonna double check our settings, and this is just a quick bake here. 25 resolution. I haven't changed really anything else. Atlas size 2048. Build that. Gonna pause it. So, okay, here we go. Let's take a look at this. Not too shabby, not too shabby. Not perfect, but not so bad. Let's play this. A few inconsistencies, but oh boy, yeah, look at that. Getting much better at dodging those babies. There's a few inconsistencies, but it's concrete, so maybe as I increase my resolution, I'll get a better bake on those. But I wouldn't really call those, I think that's more resolution problems than actual artifacts on the map. So, yeah. Not so bad. Let's take a look at those in the maps. And now when I select those barriers and look up the maps, you'll see that's what I was looking for before. So once I told Easy Road to bake in the UVs, notice that the road itself and even some of the side objects itself, well, that's the road. That's the side objects. Let me see. That's the road. That's the baked direction. Make sure we're looking at everything all at once. Baked direction. Baked direction. I can do baked intensity. Baked intensity. Baked intensity. You can see here. That's more of what. And it did 3 directional light maps. That's more of what you're looking for. You can see that's the track. It laid out the track. Did an okay job. Most of our area is taken up by the terrain, which makes sense. Here's the barrier on the left, the barrier on the right. That's the stone curb. So that's kind of what you're looking at. So one last final thing I know I keep saying that, but I think this is actually it. We can turn on Final Gather. We can bring up our ambient occlusion a little bit. And maybe we can bring up our break resolution 3540. Because you kind of do want the Final Gather. Atlas size is fine. Everything now seems to be working like we expect. I'm just going to check if I turn off my directional light. You can see that's my bake. You know, we are getting some artifacts on top of that. Railing, but you know what? I think that just has to do with, unfortunately, easy roads. You can maybe bring up the indirect resolution a little bit. Let's try that. Let's just try that. Bring it up a little bit and keep this the same. What was it? 20. Keep it like 25. And let's see if this fixes those artifacts a little bit. I'm gonna try to build this hopefully one last final time. Should look a little bit better because we definitely are doing the Final Gather. We have a little bit of ambient occlusion. Let's see what happens. Okay, we're back. That took about 5 minutes. Of course, your system may be different, but I have here 36 gigs. I have 36 gigabytes installed. So obviously it's going to, and I have some pretty hefty processors, so obviously it's going to take a different amount of time in your system. So I did notice that when I went to build this, it gave me different, you can see here, it's telling me that it's reached maximum size, but we can live with that for now. We know how to fix that if we want to. It actually put it on its own UV, so I could probably bump it up and take this whole UV. I have a lot of wasted space in my UV maps, actually, if you think about it. And all this black area here is wasted, so if I'm going to take more space, then I might as well just take that space all the way, but that's up to you. So as I increase this, I can, increase the actual number of maps I'm using, or try to increase and take more of this black space. But let's take a look at the final results. Doesn't look too bad, but I think I'm going to call that. Look at that. You see what happened with the we're getting some of the bouncing from the red on the concrete. That's that indirect increase that I did. So if you don't like that, then obviously you can fix it. There we go. Oh, get out of the way. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of bouncing from that red area here. But I did, looks like the resolution is being fixed on the actual concrete. It's still not the best. Indirect bouncing is too much. Everything else is looking pretty nice. Too much bouncing on the indirect. So, really, I don't think I'm going to do another bake, but I will show you. You might want to bring down this indirect resolution, or bring down the ambient occlusion a little bit, but that's pretty much it. That's how you would go about baking this. And at this point, it's just a matter of maybe increasing my default resolution up, but you got to be careful, because if you get too much, you might start getting errors again like before. Indirect resolution maybe looks better at 1.5. I'm going to see what happened with one large big bake and see if it's going to look better. I said I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to just try. Go to default. Also here, remember, you can set these. I'm going to bring these back down because it's telling me now that I've reached maximum size 3. It's still telling me 2.7. So you can see this is just a process. Look at that. So it's taking up a lot of space, and that's probably why we're getting that big red bounce. So I'm going to actually bring this down to size. So as you change your resolution and your size of your map, sometimes you have to go back in here and just tweak some things to make sure. Look at that, it's telling me it's reached the maximum size. That's unbelievable. Maybe one more on my terrain. Double check my terrain. Oh yeah, look at that. Maximum size. 2.5. Let's check the resolutions on these now. It's default, default, default. Okay. Those are the main things I'm concerned about. Might even be able to bring down the ray count to 512. Stop some of that bleeding of color. But I think yeah, I think I'm going to live with that. So I'll see you as soon as this finishes. Okay, we're back. Let's see what that last bake was like. First, let's take out our maps. Yeah, these maps make a little bit more sense. 2 directional light maps as opposed to 3. They're packed a little bit better. You can see how things are packed in here. Yeah, you can see how these are packed much better. We have my barriers on one. And it looks like everything else is, where's my road? My road is there in the terrain. It's a little bit better, but there still seems to be some, some space we could use. Looks like all my other objects are packed over here in this corner. Let's play that. Maybe the final gather's too much, but it doesn't look much different than before. I don't like that. Whew. Still don't like that red final gap, that bleeding of all that red, but I'm not going to do another bake. I think you have the general idea of how to get this to work. That's it. Light bouncing. So, well, at least it's working for now. That's it. Can't go on forever.